Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be back hosting another HelloCircle webinar. And for those of you who joined us last month, you'll remember our engaging session with Patricia Delastra from ZenJob, where we dove deep into creating learning environments that truly upskill managers. But first, who are we? HelloCircle is a leadership development academy specialized in empowering leaders with fast-paced startups and scale-ups. We're proud to partner with over 100 dynamic organizations, including LinkedIn, HelloFresh, Wooga, and Agnostics. Our focus is on building high-performance organizations through leadership upskilling, team productivity enhancement, change management initiatives. We also work closely with world-class HR teams to deliver customized learning journeys. Our solutions range from focus workshops to year-long global programs. And we help organizations build the leadership capabilities needed to thrive in rapidly evolving environments. And for those of you new, our mission is really simple. We empower leaders to navigate complexity, make meaningful decisions, and foster continuous growth within their teams. So thank you for listening to my TED Talk there. So without further ado, I would like to formally introduce Marília Lobo. She's our former head of L&D at Zalando, and she has more than 15 years working with global brands such as Google, Unilever, Volkswagen, and J&J. She's an expert in leadership development and organizational design with an MBA in creative leadership from the Berlin School of Creative Leadership. And she's an entrepreneur at heart, a corporate expert by design. Her focus, creating environments where leaders thrive through experiential learning. So without further ado, Marília, welcome to the HelloCircle stage today.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here to talk to you. And I really appreciate those moments. I think it's so important that we create those moments and environment for L&D people, leaders to exchange. So thank you for having me, Nicole.
Thank you for being here. When I first had a call with Marília, I was like, we have to get her here because she has such a wealth of knowledge, specifically with her most recent role with Zalando. So I'm really curious, how did you get into L&D in the first place?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to tell the story in a short way, this thing about that I like to say I'm a corporate at heart and a corporate entrepreneur at heart and corporate expert by design comes from how my career has developed. So before moving to Germany, I founded and led my own company, a boutique consultancy in the area of communication, especially mergers and acquisition. And mergers and acquisition always require culture change, always requires a lot of leadership involvement and hence leadership development. So my entry point to L&D was leadership development, and I got fascinated about a function that had the ability to create those environments for growth, for performance. So I usually say I don't have the traditional HR background that a lot of my colleagues I've been working with in L&D have, but my background is corporate communication. Then the mergers and acquisition brought me to L&D. And I think it's a fascinating field, especially because it's such a heterogeneous field with so many different specializations that you can have, and also the way you can impact the business and people's life. It's quite special. So then I fell in love with the field and enter full on.
Yeah, and we really know that at HelloCircle, really the impact. That's why we work with so many L&D leaders, because you really do have a chance to restructure an organization, and you really can help people grow and really put, new leaders onto a trajectory that can really change the whole shape of an organization. And especially if you are in a fast-paced organization, especially like with Zalando, I imagine there were a lot of challenges in getting an L&D framework off the ground, because L&D is not just training. It's like, okay, watch a training and do this, and, here we go. So maybe walk us through some of those challenges. I know there's probably a lot of people on the call or people who are going to be watching this webinar on YouTube that are going to say, "Hey, yeah, how do you build it from scratch? Where do you start?
I love the way you put it. How do you build from scratch? Because this gives me the opportunity to say, yeah, never is from scratch, right? Especially in L&D, when you're building foundational L&D infrastructures, one of the key challenges is to deep dive and consider what is there as a legacy. L&D as a function, and this is something I truly believe and encounter in different clients, in different companies I've worked with, that L&D usually emerges when the company starts to grow, so scale up, and the need for training, and then the need for performance evaluation, for growth initiatives. So it is a function that usually forms with different colleagues from different areas with so many different expertise, and they combine and they form this L&D. And then this is usually the legacy that you encounter when you start building the foundation for scalability, for example. That was the focus and the challenge of my mandate when I joined Zalando, to build those foundational structures and processes. So hence, one of the challenges is take your time to understand what exists. Is this a centralized L&D function, decentralized L&D? Usually the legacy structures, they are decentralized structure. What I mean by that is a little bit in all areas. We have professionals doing training, doing webinars, doing materials, training materials, cultural materials. So the first step should really be, and this is the path that we walk in Zalando, is to evaluate what is there and how can we separate noise from impact, but also consider what is there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So this is the first big challenge. Consider what is there and then move from this platform to build the foundational processes for scalability. The second part of the challenge, and especially in a company like Zalando, so successful with a success track record, especially in changing rapidly, was to build processes, end-to-end processes that will simplify the ecosystem. And this is also connected with tech platforms and what are the platforms that will help to simplify. But from scratch, from the moment that you evaluate the demand, where the demand is coming from, how we are going to prioritize as an L&D function the learning initiatives, and then from demand to design, delivery, and evaluation. And what I have seen, and here I'm not talking only at Zalando, but I think it's a very common pain for L&D professionals, that we have demands coming from all sides, right? Oh, we need this and that. This is the skill now and that. And it's really hard if you don't have a rigorous process, end-to-end process to evaluate. And those 4 steps are basic ones: demand, design, deliver, and evaluation. And they work in a loop. They help at least to guide you on what are the priorities, on how can I scale that, and especially taking guiding decisions in this L&D effort to avoid. And I think when we met for our briefing, we talked about this a bit, to avoid what I think is one of the greatest challenges or problems I see, that L&D becomes just this area to provide content, to dump content when we need a new deck on X and Y and Z.
That's really what I took away actually from our conversation, because L&D is one of those, if you don't actually work in L&D, and if you're not an L&D professional, and if you're not working to upskill leaders in your team, it can be sort of that, exactly, yeah, just we need some content, we need some training on this, and you know, we need like a workshop on this or something somebody can just do on lunch hour or something. But I really like this framework that you present, this 4-step process: demand, design, deliver, and evaluate. So that's something that I think our watchers, our listeners can really take away from this. So thank you for that. That's actually it's a really practical takeaway. So note to self to pull this maybe onto a.
And of course, this takes shape in different forms depending on the organization. But at the end, if you make sure those 4 pillars, they have clear processes and everyone involved understands what are the key elements, you're already covering 50-60% of the ground, right? And avoiding that we are just planting, we are just throwing a lot of seeds that I call, like with content and workshops. Not that they cannot be valuable, but when it comes to the contribution to business impact and to individual development, are those efforts following any principle and following any prioritization that really connects to business impact? Because usually that's the feedback when we have, when I encounter in my projects, in my career, feedback to L&D saying, oh, sometimes I feel you're disconnected with the business impact. It's just that, this initiative is amazing. People are happy with this workshop, but how this contribute to the bottom line? And especially with technology, right? With generative AI now, anyone today can go to ChatGPT and say, build a learning path to develop X skill in a 30-day program for a beginner or for an advanced level of skill. And ChatGPT will give you the learning program. Of course, one could say, yeah, it won't give the perfect one. I would do many changes. I did this experiment. I would really encourage anyone watching us, do this experiment as a learning professional. Go to ChatGPT and ask and put a prompt on any skill. Create a learning program, a 30-day learning program for a beginner on skill X that I want to use for Y, right? And you will be surprised. And what this means is, for a long time, creating those learning plans and curating content, curating sources, and planning the pacing and what are the elements, what are the lessons, this was the role of L&D experts. And of course, ChatGPT, I can tell about a lot of things I would do differently or I would add on. But it's undeniable that, especially for self-directed learning, for this consuming online, this role is being taken with Gen AI. So this means that the moment we are living in calls for even more strategic L&D professionals that can think about not only content, but how this connects with the bottom line, how am I prioritizing, what are the behavior frameworks or leadership expectation frameworks that I connect to my content development? What are the social learning initiatives? So it's a universe, but what I'm trying to say here is just to put the finger on the wound, saying, yeah, there is a part of a lot of what we did in the past, and many companies are still doing in this way, that slowly but surely will be change. I don't like the word replace, but it will be at least influence and change by the way learning is developed in the corporate environment.
Yeah, and it's really a tall order for L&D professionals to actually always be having to connect these things to the bottom line. And the thing with AI and what you were saying with these prompts with ChatGPT, it's sort of like, as professionals, as leaders, we have to learn how to work with it because it's not going away, right?
Yeah,
and
I like it.
How do we work with it? And and one of the things we do at HelloCircle, this is not a hit sales pitch. It's more of these cohort-based programs where you still need humans in a room to interact with one another, and especially in the workplace, that can't ever be replaced either. So these self-directed learning programs have so many limitations. So I like what you said about having, like, coming in and stepping into that and working with it together. So really great.
Yeah. And I think, listening to what you're saying, Nicole, there's one point that feels relevant to me. We also have to recognize that for many years, L&D as a function was positioned as this function that we empower people to grow and develop. But this that I'm saying, go to ChatGPT and put a prompt, type a prompt, all employees and all of us individuals, we can do that. So I think I love to think this phrase helps me to picture the zeitgeist that we're living. That is like, we don't get to decide what people care about, but we do have the chance to contribute creating the environment that support growth and development and performance. Because for the positioning that says, oh, okay, as a function, we empower people's development, also puts us in a place that, if I would take to the extreme, a place of arrogance that, oh, we are here to empower people's development. And I think with technology, this will be much more driven by individuals. So L&D initiatives, they need to meet the people and the teams and the company where they are, right? So again, we don't get to decide what people care about, but we do get to create the environment to support learning and growth.
I'm taking so many notes. I mean, even though I know this is all going to be recorded, but yeah, and I love that about creating actually that space for the growth, because you're right. We really don't have any control about what people are going to care about and what's going to really resonate with them. But so this brings me to another question. Like, how do you find these, like if you're creating a space that's, that makes this kind of learning possible and that people want to come and be part of it, how do you identify these opportunities for learning? Like, what do you look for? Or do you go back to those 4 pillars again?
Mm-hmm. So I think first you have to work really close and involve business stakeholders from the start. Marília, this is obvious. Yeah, it is, but unfortunately it's not common. And what I mean by that is, for example, in the demand pillar, L&D must be on the table discussing workforce planning. What are the skills that this company will need in 5 years, 3 years from now, based on our goals and the targets that we have? What are the organizational design changes that are expected? Business unit A will not exist. Business unit B will change dramatically. That will impact the skilling and upskilling initiatives. So demand management in L&D must be truly connected to workforce planning. And in reality, this is really hard to do. It's really hard to, and it's always this being ambidextrous, that you have to keep running the show with your catalog, your learning initiatives, and this is the delivery part on the pillars. But you have at the same time you have at the same time to think about how you're managing the demand, looking at your present targets and your future targets. So workforce planning, for example, needs to be on your agenda for the demand. This is just one example. I could go forever and ever. And how to do that, best practices on how to connect with the business objectives will be involve business stakeholders from the start. So basically, fight is a big word, but work to have a place on the table. I think it's better than fight. Is work to have a place on the table to discuss how learning and development and how learning initiatives can support the development of the workforce. This is one thing. Another thing that I truly believe is to prioritize and also to design thinking about this idea of meeting the people and the team where they are. We have to move away from that idea, what is in for me? Because usually what is in for me turns into just you trying to sell your agenda. So let's, for example, we need to do a feedback transparency campaign. What is in for me as an employee? You're going to get better relations and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Basically, as HR, as people function, we are selling our agenda with this mindset of what is in for me, that in this case is the learner. And my proposal or my call to action is we should change for what can I do as an employee with that piece of knowledge, with that piece of information that you're giving me. So it's going from what is in for me that inevitably turns into a salesy agenda defending mechanism that you are trying to convince that your content is good, thinking about all the content that exists online and with peer learning, you're trying to defend, this is good for you. Move from that to what can you do with that? What can you do better if you engage and if you are present and if you do your part as well in this learning initiative? Meaning, what can you do faster? What can you how can you use this learning to change your behavior in a way that you'll be more productive, or you will be achieving this goal that you have quicker, or more effectively. So this for me, I think it's a mindset that helps thinking about content development and prioritization.
And it's also a really great way to empower yourself in a space where there's a lot of, like you say, there's a lot of like, oh, can't you just do the training here? Or how does this meet our business goals on a line? So instead of saying, okay, yeah, just do this, tick off the box, you kind of step in and go, okay. And you come in more of a place of actually servicing your clients really by being where they are. And like you say, not pushing your agenda on them and forcing it. So that's can be applied to all kind of areas in business and career and everything too. So that's another great takeaway from here.
Yeah. And one caveat, and or maybe a little bit of a hug of comfort. I know that some people watching can be saying, yeah, Marília, I know this is beautiful. But reality is that I have every day an email coming asking for a new training, a new workshop, or a new PowerPoint. Yes, I understand. And I also experience this reality. You are not crazy. You are not living in another universe. But what I'm saying here is, if you manage to separate at least 30% of your energy for this kind of mindset and attitude and work that we are talking about, how to be connected with workforce planning, how to make sure that you have processes that help you scale, you have frameworks of behavior frameworks that help you to connect your learning initiatives. Slowly, you can start changing this percentage, because again, it's always every talk, every meeting I go, at the end of the day, we're always talking about how can we be more respected? How can we prove our impact? And respect is earned. And if you have initiatives that you have the indicators, the performance indicators, and you have the logic understood by stakeholders, and this has an impact, a different impact, the respect will most likely be earned, and then you can do more of that and less of the endless PowerPoints or facilitating in events. So I dream with the moment that L&D won't be just this function that people send an email when they have an event and they want you to facilitate workshop X or Z, or they want you to do beautiful PowerPoints. So maybe I'm thinking about the ideal word too much, but I think we all, as a function, we need to move in that direction.
Yeah, no more PowerPoints.
No more PowerPoints.
Yeah, and one of the things we wanted to do with these lab event series as well is to stay away from the PowerPoint and really be present and be with everybody. I already see even 2 questions are coming in so far, so this is going to be great. So let's get to one more thing I want to know. Actually, there's a few more things I'd like to ask you before we jump into questions. How do you measure success? Like, when you're building a learning culture, how do you know if an initiative is actually successful?
Well, first we have to think about, okay, what does success mean, right? Because when we think, how we could talk about key metrics and also agree and disagree on participation is a metric. I don't know, right? So first thing is defining the meaning of success. What success look like? And again, it's obvious, but I don't think we spend enough time defining with our sponsors, with our stakeholders, what success means for this company, for this team in this context. So this is the first homework. But for me, in general, without going into specific of metrics, I think it comes back to, usually in the work context, in the corporate environment, what are the initiatives that were able to change behaviors or unlearn routines or ways of working that were blocking people to achieve their result. Right? Because again, learning, we are all passionate about knowledge, but when we think about learning and development applied in the corporate context, we are talking about I learned something to do something with this learning. So what I'm trying to say is intellectual stimulation alone is not enough, right? I've seen hundreds of times a lot of people going to workshops. At first, they were like, oh, I'm a little bit bored. I have to be 8 hours with this trainer here. I know tomorrow my email will be full and I'll have to work three days to recover from this one day being here. And then the session is amazing. They are lucky. The facilitator is doing a great job facilitating the learning. They are excited. They leave the room energized and with all that ideas on how they can change, but then nothing happens because the train continues to travel and life is busy. So again, for me, it relates a lot on are we clear about what success means, and usually it's connected to a change in behavior or ways of working or reflection into action, right? I'm a big fan of reflection. So I'm a big fan of programs and initiatives, be it self-directed with social learning or different formats, peer learning, that invite for reflection, but it cannot be invite for reflection without action. So without reflection into action.
Reflection into action. I mean, that is a question I could just go on and on about. I would want a workshop.
We could do like 1 hour of reflection into action.
I'm not actually writing clips. I'm actually writing notes down because this is so useful to me. And really that intellectual stimulation is not enough. I remember I used to work for a big finance company, and I remember we had one of these workshops and I just felt so alive after and so ready and just so excited. And I remember sharing with colleagues about it. And then we never spoke about it again. And then I'm even thinking of this workshop and I remember the facilitator and everything. And then that was it. Like this great workshop we did. Nothing again. No reflection, no action. We never did anything about it.
And that's a great story, Nicole, because this is what over time erodes the reputation of learning and development. Because at the moment it's amazing, people are energized, but then of course the C-level is seeing like, okay, there is a momentum, there is energy, but I'm investing here and here and here, and then over time, no action, right? And usually this is also a deeper topic we could talk a lot about, but usually it's due to systemic challenges. So this means that L&D professionals should also learn more, engage more with systemic thinking, because usually the issues or the needs of the company for upskilling, reskilling, development, they also are connected to challenges in that given system, challenges in the culture, challenges of individuals, a lot of challenges that a learning initiative alone won't be able to solve. However, the learning initiative can be the starting point for this discussion.
Absolutely. Now I'm thinking, hey, can I go back to that company and tell them about HelloCircle and all the great things that we're doing? I don't know. So we still have time for just a couple more questions, but because I can see the questions are coming in. See, I could talk to you all day. So
yeah, me too. I told you, I also love those conversations. They give me energy. And
how do you scale all this? Like when you're in a fast-paced organization, like how do you scale it?
So
we know where to begin.
Yeah. So scaling learning is, I think, one of the hardest things, and because it involves a lot of paradoxes. And when we think about paradoxes, we are talking about things that need to coexist. So both and mentality. And what is the paradox that I see in scaling is, to scale, you need to have frameworks that simplify, that make it accessible at different levels, in different ways. But at the same time, you must plan for not losing those social learning elements that you just mentioned. So scaling learning, in my experience, it is a paradoxical thing. The best practices I've experienced in scaling learning usually were, having those frameworks of how my learning initiatives and content is connected to, as I mentioned before, the expectations I have from those leaders, the skill set for a given role. So having clear roles and responsibilities connected to the skills, because then you can build a portfolio of learning that clearly connects to the roles you want to develop, and then you can scale, because you need to scale, you need to have a degree of standardization. But another thing I always want to mention when I talk about scalability in learning is that in learning, we can never offer a solution that is causation. We can offer correlation. What I mean by that is the famous phrase, right? So it's, we can see learning and say, this learning initiative might correlate to improvement in X, Y, Z area. But it's really hard to promise that this learning initiative alone will cause this change. So correlation is not causation, right? The famous quote when we talk about thinking about research, but in learning, for me, this is very important, because a lot of times I have people coming to me, we have this exciting project, let's do this, da, 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 da. Can you promise that this would cause? I said, no. And rarely ever, I would love that the question would be different, right? But almost ever, it's a combination of factors. It includes culture, it includes strategy. So we cannot build this direct connection with causation. And this also is important, just as a side note, when you're thinking about scaling learning. Because if you don't think about this, you have the risk of just ticking the box, meaning, I have a MOOC. I have a massive open online course. I have 200 courses available to my employees, and twice a month we have all hands. We are doing learning. Check. No, you're not.
It sounds like many organizations I've been part of, and I remember some of that as well. And I love to see how L&D really is also upskilling and getting more, I guess.
And this is why, I know I might be judged as idealistic, but I love those initiatives to really upskill L&D professionals and people development professionals, that they can have this kind of conversation. They can put those kind of questions as part of their briefing process. Because when you receive a stakeholder, when you receive a briefing, we need this learning initiative, you will do the learning initiative. That it might be just one workshop that will energize everyone. But you can already include all those questions, and sometimes those uncomfortable questions, in your briefing. And you will learn so much that then you can slowly make the change.
Absolutely. 2 more questions before we get to the audience questions, because they're really starting to roll in now. I mean, at Zalando in particular, or maybe this is not applicable to Zalando, but like, how did you make like leadership development accessible at all levels? Because I'm sure you dealt with all levels of people in their career trajectory there.
So I think thinking about leadership developments at different levels, I will circle back to the meet the leaders where they are. So it really helps to understand and segment the audience. Are you talking about first-time leaders? So, for example, individual contributors or collaborators, managers that never managed, never were in the people leadership position? Or are you talking about seasoned leaders that need much? So this first group of first-time leaders might need basic guidance on your processes of performance and value evaluation, hard conversations, a bit more about the culture of that company. Or are you talking about seasoned leaders that might need to understand what are your unlearning needs? Because what I oftentimes experience with leaders is with seasoned leaders, sometimes you transition from company A to B, and then you have to unlearn a lot of things that your previous company used to work and the environment and how the culture is, and you're not aware just because you have your style. So, or are you talking about C-level that really needs much more time to connect, to network, and it's less guidance? So I think segmenting the audience, but not in the obvious way, but really trying to understand the segment is one thing. And I am a true believer, but I acknowledge my bias because my background is corporate communication, as I said at the beginning. But I really believe L&D needs to pair, and I believe this intersection L&D and communication. So also the way to make leadership accessible at all levels is to communicate the value to stakeholders and to leaders. And communicating the value, understanding their language, their ways of consuming content, understanding their rituals. So I really have a problem. I have a problem sometimes when I see initiatives, for example, that, okay, is this a standard description of learning objectives and with what you can do with this after blah, 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 and bullet points, etc. But they are not embedded in the flow of work of that audience, or they're not embedded in the ritual. So, for example, if you're talking about tech leaders communicate with chat, for example. They use a lot of chat, be it Google Chat, MSN in the company, depending on the platform. And they love emojis. They have a lot of geek references. And then L&D comes with this boring, old-fashioned email that no one would even open. It's totally different if you suggest, why don't we create a mini communication campaign, a group that we talk and we use the geek language from Star Wars and we connect to our skills and to the things that we want to deliver in this initiative. So here I'm already talking a little bit about creativity as well. I think we need to be creative, especially because attention span is limited, and everyone is busy. No one has headspace, and it will get worse and worse. So we have to get more creative on how we connect with them. I mentioned the tech leaders, but for example, if you're talking with leaders that they work mainly on transactional leadership, what I mean by that, leaders in sales, leaders in top floor shop, that they have a high turnover on employees, the way of leading is completely different because you know that this employee would be with you for 1 year. So the retention strategies are different. Usually the communication is a bit more rigid. So then you also have to adjust. So I think also getting leadership development accessible at all levels, it's also about adapting your portfolio, how you present your portfolio to the audience. Same as, for example, Netflix does for us. It presents the movies in a different way depending on your consumption. Well,
it reminds me of this quote I learned in journalism school so long ago. It's like, the medium is the message, really. So it's where you're meeting, where your people are, and it's the same in any kind of communication or strategy. So really awesome stuff. I see the chat is kind of blowing up here. So I feel like we should give our audience some time now. So what kind of strategies did you find most effective in helping line managers become better at helping their people know what kinds of development opportunities they should pursue?
okay. What's the name of the person that asked the question? Barbara. Barbara, what I understood from your question, it's about how to help them understand the journeys, right? The different learning journeys that specific team members they should pursue and how to support. So I think two things come to my mind. One is thinking about, are your leaders being recognized by the time they spend doing leadership? And I know this sounds very simple, but it's not. What I mean is your performance methodology. It's completely leveraging or recognizing only individual contributions from that leader, or it's also recognizing developing people. And this I'm talking from the side of the leader, because I hear a lot people saying, oh, how leaders can help their team members and spend time and help them develop. And then this first question I ask is, how is this leader recognized? Do you have a focus area on your performance review that is spending time helping your team to develop? If you don't have that, the leader is a human being, and most of us here are leaders. If you have to prove and your performance review is 100% based on individual contributions you deliver as a leader, but as an individual, most likely you won't have time to have, and now I'm going to transition to the core of your question, to have time and energy to have one-on-ones and conversations, because understanding this journey, this individual journey and this team journey only comes from knowing the people you are leading, knowing the person beyond the role, and knowing the challenges. Of course, I could just, to give you one practical matrix that I really like the skill wheel matrix, very famous, that basically is a matrix with 2x2 matrix that says, okay, what is the maturity of the skill that this team member has, and the will, meaning the motivation. And once you map your team, then you can develop specific initiatives or coaching, mentoring, learning initiatives according to where this person is placed in this matrix. How can L&D help? Raising awareness about you need to dedicate time, maybe giving some tools like this matrix and many others that exist, and also provoking the performance team, the C-level, the directors on, are we recognizing in our performance review leadership in reality, or we just say that we want leaders to spend time developing their people? And this is kind of the provocative part of the answer.
Yeah, like, is it lip service, or do you actually really mean it? Thank you. Okay, coming in, I think I figured out how to get the questions out longer. So this one is from Paloma. Most companies are using digital trainings, one size fits all, but we have an increasingly heterogeneous workforce from different generations. Have you noticed any impact of this training format on the different generations?
Totally. And I think, Paloma, you just hit the how do you say? Hit the
nail on the hammer.
Hit the nail. Yes, hit the nail on the hammer. I think the use of digital trainings as one size fits all is one of the pitfalls we encounter. I'm not saying that you cannot make it available, the same training, but the engagement strategies to activate that training will be completely different depending on the generation, depending on everything we discussed, the audience, the maturity. And what I usually see, unfortunately, is that in a lot of contexts, we just tick the box by saying we have the trainings available. And this month we had 200 people watching our trainings, but were they watching or were they just clicking, click, 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 click? Were they just letting the digital training happening while they were doing other stuff? Were they engaging? And most importantly, are they aware or are they clear on how this will help them at doing something at their work more effectively? Or is this just a training to tick the box? Right. So I think, in a nutshell, now trying to get more practical, what I would suggest, if you say, okay, Marília, beautiful, but Paloma, here in my context, I just have this online training that is the same for everyone. What should I do? I think the advice I would give is segment your audience. Try to build at least some segments of your audience and test different communication approaches to different audience to activate this online training. And when I talk about communication strategies, can be, as we mentioned, the different ways to engage and to communicate the value of that online training, and including in the day-to-day of the company. So, for example, nothing blocks us as L&Ds to suggest, hey, we have this all hands or we have this monthly meeting. Why don't we extract one learning, one nugget, one takeaway from this training, and we put on stage with the CEO, and the CEO will read this takeaway and will connect with his or her experience on that given topic. And then you have a call to action. Yeah, if you want to know more about, we have this training, blah, blah, blah. I hope I could help you, Paloma, at least to shed some light.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, we all know the famous click, click, click through a training, and there's so many memes and like reels about it on Instagram and TikTok too. So yeah.
And again, why to do that, right? Because if we don't, because people say, oh yeah, Marília, but I have all the other things to do in my L&D day to day. Over time, this erodes our reputation as professionals. There is no way out. If we don't fight this battle, this erodes our ability to be strategic, our ability to deliver results. And then, yeah, the memes and all the perception and how corporate training is perceived. We just go on TikTok and we will know. We will learn.
Yeah. I wish our founder, Darius Moini, was on right now because he's such an advocate for really upskilling and bringing L&D professionals to the place where you are and what you're saying as well. So it really aligns with everything that we do here. And really, L&D is not a place of just, watching these, crappy videos and then getting it over with or things like that. It's so much more about that. And especially if you are in a scale up, you have to have, the right skills to actually keep going. So thank you for that. And now we've got one from Mike. Okay. In times of budget constraints, how do you maintain momentum in leadership development while demonstrating clear ROI to stakeholders?
Mike, also great question. And I would go for the less is more, right? I would prefer to have one great learning initiatives instead of 3, 4, but then you build as a long tail. So you have this, let's imagine topic X, you have this great moment with a facilitator or a training or as a certification, but then you stretch out your strategies in 3 quarters and you work retrieval memory. So for me, this is an area of learning that no one talks, like not no one, there's a lot of people talking about, but it's hardly ever activated. We can repeat things 30, 60, 90 days. So basically think about how can I turn my initiative in a long tail initiative that I will activate over and over again instead of doing 3, 4, 5. Right? So basically is investing your money wisely by thinking on a long tail strategy for your learning initiative.
Let's took another note down. Thank you. Okay, how are you? So we have, look at the questions are also coming in. Okay. Our next one is from Sanika. I hope I'm saying your name right. There we go. What strategies have you found effective for encouraging continuous knowledge sharing among teams?
Sanika, I love that because it gives me the opportunity to also talk about peer learning. Again, coming back to the history of L&D function or the way, of course, this is a personal read of mine about how L&D function has developed. The positioning of the function as this is the function that encourages people, it's a bit controlling and I would dare to say arrogant. And I think peer learning is so powerful, right? So the way to incentivize peer learning is by giving the tools for peer learning and understanding the skills in a team. So the first thing I do when I start working with a new team, be it in the corporate environment or as a consultant, is I want to know what you do in your role, but I also want to know what you do aside. What are your skills? What you're passionate about? And oh, this person writes. This person, for example, I do fiction writing and I do collage. This person, it's creative. This person loves movies and studies this other astronomy in the free time. So I really think it's underestimate the power of peer learning and things you can learn from your peers, just because we simply don't remember to incentivize. I love, and I always talk about it. I cannot remember the name now of the consultancy, but I will do. If you Google, you will find. But there is one framework, one Canva that I really love called the Washington Instructions. I think it's cultural feed culture. It's a consulting on culture. So it's a free resource, for example, that is a canvas with 4 basic questions about the way you like to communicate in a team. What are you passionate about? And the way to incentivize peer learning is really to understanding your peers. Unfortunately, again, I know it's hard because we are with limited attention span, limited headspace, and with that, we need just to be rigorous on using the rituals that already exist. All leaders, at least good leaders, they should have at least one team meeting from time to time. As L&D, you can offer in your newsletter or in your channels a nugget. Why don't you take this framework to your teams for your next team meeting? This is what you will gain, and what can you do with this this framework, X, Y, Z. Right? So this is a way as a function on how to stimulate, incentivize peer learning. But I love your question. I think this is a underestimated area.
I do as well. And Darius, our founder, also did an interview with another influential person in this space. And one of the things she talked about when I listened to the interview was how she would get the team together and they would do like cooking classes. And one of them happened to be like Persian cooking classes, which may sound like another team building event or things like that. But it connects you to people in ways that you normally wouldn't and outside the box. Just like me knowing that you are into collage and fiction writing. I'm like, oh, wow, I really like fiction as well. So instantly we start to have more of a bond together. And it's really about empathy too. So
exactly.
And having that empathic approach to who you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So a really, really great question, Mike.
And this also, I think this also gives individuals the safe space to ask, oh, Nicole, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? And you won't, if you don't know Nicole, or if Nicole is just a senior communication manager dot in the title, most likely you won't ask, you won't learn. And sometimes I saw this so many times, like it took 1 year for a leader to know that X employee was actually an expert on a field, but this was not connected to the role. It's like, guess what? You're just not benefiting from something that is already there. And I have to say, sorry, it's your fault as a leader if you don't know, and if you manage to ignore all the things that are not directly connected to the role, because we bring ourselves and our expertise, our stories, our experiences as a whole to a role, even though we are not always using all our package, all our repertoire.
Yeah, and that's a whole other, event we could do, really, like bringing your whole self to work and feeling psychologically safe enough to actually do that. So, okay, we're really getting on time here.
Ooh, 5 minutes.
So I think we've got 2 more. I think we can answer if we go as quickly.
Yeah, I'll be diligent.
Riza, excuse me if I'm butchering your name here. Can you suggest some tips on how to create a meaningful leadership development program with a very lean budget and no dedicated L&D team to run it?
Ooh, Riza, yeah. Challenging, but here we go. Sit with your senior leadership, your C-level boss directors, ask them to, okay, what are the 3 behaviors that you want all leaders in this company to have, and agree all together in one behavior that they will start role modeling in every action they do. Not talking about workshop, not talking this it requires no money, right? It requires just the mapping that you can do together and the diligent behavior of leaders to role model those 3 behaviors in every situation. I could talk for 1 hour about how Disney, for example, does this with their principles of customer service, but we don't have time. But this is one idea with no cost. Because again, one thing we didn't talk much, but I want to emphasize is no learning initiative will be successful without sponsorship and role modeling of senior leaders. Right? And if you go and they say to you, Riza, our leaders don't do that, you have to find a way to say politely or to guide self-reflection. Are you as a senior leadership team? So is this senior leadership team doing that? So that will be my suggestion. No cost. Map the 3 behaviors on a meeting. Build a small framework in-house and map all the initiatives where they will, as senior leaders, role model this behavior. And then you can, as function, or this person that is not an L&D function, communicate and highlight some of those behaviors. So basically you go from the individual to the transforming this behavior as a collective behavior that is a behavior that this company wants to have or wants to live by.
Yeah, a lot of this does really come from the top too, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, we have one last question we have time for. This one is from Simona. In 1 minute, Marília, can you please share tools, methodologies, tech solutions that help us identify knowledge gaps or upskill opportunities?
Oh, okay. I won't share tech solutions, but I will share 3 names of people that I think you should follow that are really good, right? Because they share tech solutions for free on LinkedIn. So I would highly recommend everyone to share. And I'm not earning any money for that. It's just like mentors and people that I share, and I admire the work they do. You can also share me. Sometimes I share some materials, but Robert Meza, it's Robert, M-A-Z-Z-A on LinkedIn. He is a behavioral scientist. Amazing. Dr. Philippa Handman, yeah. AI plus learning. Dr. Philippa talks a lot about all those tools. And one thing, I'm a book this I brought because I love it, right? I would recommend the Talk to the Elephant by Julie Dirksen. Design Learning for Behavior Change. So this is a book that is really easy to digest with practical tips that I think it will be very helpful for anyone in L&D. In 1 minute, done.
Oh, that was good. Okay. Marília, I could have talked to you for another hour. So I thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all your incredible wisdom for us, and to our live audience who just kept this chat going. And, you know, we keep these chats and collaborations and support going a lot at HelloCircle. We love, obviously, cohort and learning and connecting with people. We have a monthly breakfast series. If you're in Berlin, I highly recommend you come in, not just for the incredible locally sourced vegan croissants, but really as a time to share problems and discuss solutions and really, you know, come together as a team. And especially in today's age of everything online and low attention span, sometimes it's nice to just share and talk and work through a problem versus just doing everything on your own, which you don't have to. We have great webinars like this with awesome guests like this. And, you know, we want to stay in touch with you. We've recently launched a newsletters that is not going to be full of fluff, but more knowledge and know-how. And we'll share more of these events. So join us on our LinkedIn community. And we are here. And until next time, Marília and everybody on the call, We look forward to seeing you again soon, and have a lovely night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nicole, for great hosting of the event. Thanks, everyone.
It's easy when I have a great guest. So
Thank you. See you next time.
take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.